The penthouse sprawled across the top 3 floors of the tallest tower in Gangnam, Seoul, a fortress of black marble, floor-to-ceiling glass, and secrets no one lived long enough to tell. Kang Tae-woo ruled the city's underworld like a shadow emperor. At 34, he was the youngest don in the Korean Mafia's modern history, head of the Red Lotus Syndicate. Drugs, arms, politicians in his pocket, rivals buried so deep their families still sent flowers to empty graves. He didn't smile. He didn't need to. One look from those cold obsidian eyes and men begged for mercy they never received. Tonight, the staff had been replaced again. Tae-woo trusted no one twice. His head of household, an old woman named Madam Park who feared him more than God, had brought the new maid up personally. She's American-raised but Nigerian blood, sir. Clean background, speaks perfect Korean, English, and French. No family here. No ties. Exactly what you asked for. Tae-woo stood at the windows overlooking the Han River glittering like spilled diamonds. He didn't turn around until he heard the soft click of heels on the marble. Then he did. And the world narrowed to one single point. She was standing just inside the double doors, hands clasped in front of her crisp black uniform, white apron starched to perfection. Tall. Skin like polished mahogany under the warm recessed lighting. Hair pulled into a sleek bun that still managed to look rebellious, a few curls escaping at the nape of her neck. Full lips painted a neutral rose. Eyes dark wide, defiant even while she kept them lowered. Aisha Okaro, 26. Former university student who'd taken the job because her visa had run out and the agency paid triple for discretion. Tae-woo felt something ancient and dangerous uncoil in his chest. Not lust, at least not only lust. Possession. The kind that made empires fall. He crossed the room slowly, Italian leather shoes silent on the floor. Madam Park melted away without being told. The doors closed with a soft final click, sealing them in. Aisha lifted her gaze only when his shadow fell over her. She'd been warned about him. Everyone in the staff quarters whispered the same thing. Asterisk, don't look him in the eye. Don't speak unless spoken to. And whatever you do, never be alone with him. Asterisk. Too late. You're new, he said, voice low, accented English smooth as smoke. Yes, sir. Her voice didn't tremble. Good. He circled her once, slow, like a predator deciding whether to play with its food. She smelled like vanilla and something warmer, cocoa butter, maybe. Real. Not the chemical perfume the other maids wore. When he stopped in front of her again, he was close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. 6'3" tailored black suit and barely leashed power. Tae-woo reached out, one finger hooking under her chin, tilting her face up further. Her pulse jumped against his thumb. Tonight, he murmured, the words brushing across her lips like a vow and a threat at once. I will make you mine. Aisha's breath caught. For a second the fear was there, raw and bright, then something else flashed in her eyes. Anger. Curiosity. Heat. She didn't pull away. You bought my labor, Mr. Kang, she said, quiet but steady. Not me. A ghost of a smile touched his mouth, the first in months. It didn't reach his eyes. Semantics, he replied. By morning you'll understand the difference. He released her chin but didn't step back. Your quarters are on the east wing. Mine are here. You'll serve dinner at 9. Wear the red dress in the closet instead of the uniform. And Aisha. She waited. If you try to run, I'll find you before you reach the elevator. And then the game stops being fun. He turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, heart hammering, the weight of his promise settling over her skin like silk and chains. The night was just beginning. Outside, Seoul glittered, unaware that its most dangerous man had finally found the one thing he wanted more than power. And she was already inside his walls. Aisha stood frozen long after the door closed behind Kang Tae-woo. Her skin still burned where his fingers had touched her chin. The scent of his cologne, dark oud, leather, and something colder lingered in the air like a warning. She exhaled shakily and looked around the vast living room. Everything screamed wealth and danger, black marble veined with gold, abstract art that probably cost more than her entire education, and windows that made Seoul look like it belonged to him. Because it did. Her new quarters were on the east wing, just as he'd said. When she entered, The dress was already laid out on the bed like an offering. Blood red silk. Backless. Dangerously low neckline. The kind of dress that wasn't made for cleaning floors. She stared at it for a long minute, jaw tight. Arrogant bastard, she whispered. But she put it on. At exactly 9 o'clock, Aisha walked back into the main penthouse. The heels he'd left with the dress clicked softly against the marble. The silk whispered against her thighs with every step. She felt exposed, powerful, and furious all at once. Taewoo was already seated at the long black dining table, one ankle resting on his knee, scrolling through his phone. When he looked up, his gaze dragged over her slowly, possessive, unapologetic. The corner of his mouth lifted in the faintest hint of approval. You wore it. I work here, she answered coolly, stopping a few feet away. You told me to. He set the phone down and rose from his chair. In the soft lighting, he looked even more lethal, tall, broad-shouldered, the black dress shirt unbuttoned at the collar revealing a hint of ink on his chest. Mafia ink. The kind that marked power and death. Come here. Aisha hesitated only a second before stepping closer. He pulled out the chair beside his instead of across the table. Close. Too close. She sat. He remained standing behind her for a moment, fingers brushing the bare skin of her back as he pushed the chair in. The touch was light, but it sent electricity racing down her spine. Dinner was served by silent staff who vanished immediately after. Wagyu steak, black truffle risotto, wine so expensive it probably had a name older than her. Taewoo ate slowly, watching her more than he watched his plate. You're not afraid of me, he said after a while. It wasn't a question. Aisha took a sip of wine, letting the rich taste sit on her tongue before answering. I'm not stupid enough to show fear in front of a man like you. It only makes things worse. Taewoo leaned back, studying her with those unreadable obsidian eyes. Most women in your position would already be on their knees begging for mercy. I'm not most women. She met his gaze head-on. And I don't beg. The air between them crackled. He set his knife and fork down with deliberate care. You will, he said quietly. Not tonight. Maybe not tomorrow. But you will beg me, Aisha. For my hands. For my mouth. For permission to come. And when you do, I'll make sure you never forget who owns the pleasure. Heat flooded her face and pooled low in her belly, unwanted and undeniable. She hated her body for reacting to the dark promise in his voice. She leaned forward slightly, voice low and steady despite the storm inside her. You talk a lot for a man who hasn't even kissed me yet. Taewoo's eyes flashed with raw hunger. In one fluid motion he stood, pulled her chair back, and hauled her up against his body. One arm banded around her waist, the other sliding into her hair, tilting her head back. Their faces were inches apart. You want me to kiss you? He murmured against her lips. Ask nicely. Aisha's heart hammered so hard she was sure he could feel it. She could feel the hard line of his body pressed to hers, the heat rolling off him, the unmistakable evidence of his arousal against her stomach. She smiled, small and defiant. I don't ask. If you want it, take it. Something savage flickered across his face, lust mixed with dark delight at the challenge. He crashed his mouth down on hers. The kiss was not gentle. It was a conquest. His lips claimed hers with bruising intensity, tongue sweeping in like he already owned every part of her. Aisha gasped into his mouth, and he swallowed the sound, deepening the kiss until her knees weakened and her hands fisted in his shirt. When he finally pulled back, both of them were breathing hard. Taewoo rested his forehead against hers, voice rough with restraint. Tonight was only the beginning. Tomorrow you'll move your things into the room next to mine. You'll sleep where I can reach you. And every night after that, I'll teach you exactly what it means to be mine. Aisha touched her swollen lips, eyes still blazing even as her body trembled with aftershocks. You can take my body, Kong Taewoo. You can even make me want it. But my mind? My heart? Those are mine. You'll never have them. He smiled then, a slow, dangerous curve of his lips that made her stomach flip. We'll see, little maid. We'll see. He stepped back, adjusting his cufflinks as if he hadn't just kissed her senseless. Clear the table when you're done. Then go to bed. Tomorrow your real duties begin. As he walked toward the hallway that led to his private wing, he paused once more and looked back at her. Sweet dreams, Aisha. Dream of me. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Aisha sank back into the chair, legs shaky, lips tingling, fury and unwanted desire warring inside her chest. She was in the lion's den now. And the lion had just tasted blood. He would come for more. Every single night. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the penthouse, casting long shadows across the black marble floors. Aisha woke early, the events of the previous night lingering like a heavy fog in her mind. Her lips still remembered the pressure of Taewoo's kiss, but she pushed the thought aside and dressed quickly in her standard black uniform. She refused to let one moment define her. Madam Park was waiting in the main living area, her expression as stern as ever. Mr. King has instructed that your belongings be moved to the suite adjacent to his. You are to serve him personally from now on. Aisha's chest tightened, but she kept her voice steady. Understood. 2 bodyguards escorted her down the east wing. The new room was spacious and elegantly furnished, king-sized bed with crisp linens, a private balcony overlooking the Han River, and a large closet. A few new items had already been placed inside, several dresses in deep tones, but nothing overly revealing. She unpacked her few personal belongings in silence, determined to maintain some sense of control. She was organizing the last of her things when the door opened without warning. Taewoo entered, dressed in a tailored charcoal suit, looking every bit the composed Mafia boss. His gaze swept over her uniform with mild disapproval, but he said nothing about changing it. Breakfast will be served in 15 minutes, he said simply. Join me at the table. Aisha nodded once. Yes, sir. The meal was quiet at first. They sat at the long dining table with the city sprawled below them. Taewoo ate methodically, occasionally glancing at her. Aisha focused on her food, refusing to fill the silence with unnecessary words. You adapt quickly, he remarked after some time, his tone neutral but probing. I have no choice, she replied evenly, meeting his eyes for a brief moment. This is my job now. He leaned back slightly, studying her. Most in your position would be terrified. You're not. Fear won't change my situation, she said. It only makes it harder to think clearly. A faint smile touched his lips there and gone in an instant. Good. I prefer clarity. The rest of the day passed under a constant, watchful tension. Taewoo kept her nearby while he handled business calls in rapid Korean, his voice sharp and commanding. He had her bring him documents, pour coffee, and organize files in his study. Every interaction carried an undercurrent of his presence, close enough to remind her of his authority, but never crossing into force. He tested her boundaries with small commands and lingering looks, but Aisha responded with quiet defiance, performing each task efficiently while holding his gaze when required. By evening, the air between them felt thicker, charged with unspoken words. Dinner was another silent affair, broken only by the clink of silverware. When the staff cleared the plates, Taewoo finally spoke. You'll sleep in the adjacent room tonight. But know this, Aisha, I don't bring people close without reason. You're here because I chose you. The rest will come in time. She stood, smoothing her uniform. And I'm here because I need the work. Nothing more. His eyes darkened slightly, but he didn't press. We'll see. As she retired to her new room, Aisha closed the door and leaned against it, exhaling slowly. The pull between them was undeniable, his intensity drawing her in even as her pride pushed back. It wasn't love or surrender. It was a slow, careful dance of power and resistance. She wouldn't break easily, and something told her he didn't want her to. The fragile balance they had built shattered on a rainy Thursday night. Taewoo had grown more distracted in recent days, his phone buzzing at odd hours, urgent meetings with his lieutenants filling the late evenings. Aisha noticed the shift, but kept her observations to herself. Their interactions had settled into a tense rhythm, quiet conversations laced with challenge, shared meals where words carried double meanings, and nights where the space between their rooms felt smaller than it should. That evening, they were finishing dinner when Minho, Taewoo's head of security, entered abruptly. Boss. The Black Scorpions hit the Incheon warehouse. 3 men dead. They left a message. The Nigerian whore is next. Taewoo's expression hardened into ice. His fingers tightened around his glass until the crystal creaked. Aisha stiffened, the crude words hitting like a slap. She kept her face composed, but her pulse quickened. How did they learn about her? Taewoo asked, voice dangerously calm. Someone on the inside talked. Likely kitchen staff. The scorpions see her as leverage after we took their Busan routes. Taewoo's gaze flicked to Aisha, revealing a flicker of something raw, protective fury beneath the cold exterior. Lock everything down, he ordered. Double the guards. Get Choi on the line. I want every scorpion location mapped by morning. Minho left quickly. Once alone, Taewoo rose and crossed to her side of the table. He didn't touch her aggressively, but his presence filled the space as he looked down at her. They won't get near you, he said quietly, intensity burning in his eyes. I'll end them before they try. Aisha searched his face. The man who had claimed her so boldly now stood ready to protect her with everything he had. It stirred something deep inside her, gratitude mixed with unease at how entangled their lives had become. You don't owe me protection, she said softly. I'm still just the help you decided to keep close. His hand lifted, brushing a strand of hair from her face with surprising gentleness. You stopped being just anything weeks ago. You're under my roof, under my watch. That makes you mine to safeguard. That night, sleep came uneasily. Taewoo insisted she stay in the main suite for safety, though he kept his distance on the couch while she took the bed. The tension hung heavy, but for once, it wasn't about dominance, it was about survival. The conflict escalated swiftly and violently. 2 nights later, as Taewoo's convoy prepared to relocate Aisha to a secure safe house, the Black Scorpion struck in the underground garage. Gunfire exploded without warning. Bullets ricocheted off concrete and vehicles. Taewoo shoved Aisha behind an armored SUV, drawing his weapon with practiced calm. Stay down, he commanded, voice cutting through the chaos. Shouts and screams filled the air as his men returned fire. One scorpion fighter broke through the line, knife drawn, charging toward Aisha. She grabbed a loose metal pipe from the ground and swung it hard, striking him across the side of the head. He crumpled. Taewoo saw the moment and fired twice, dropping the man cleanly. Pride flashed in his eyes amid the violence. When the shooting finally stopped, 6 scorpions lay dead or wounded. 2 of Taewoo's guards were injured but alive. Taewoo stood steady, scanning the scene before his eyes found Aisha. She rose on shaky legs, a smear of dust and someone else's blood on her cheek. Without hesitation, she walked to him and placed a hand on his arm. You risked everything for me, she said, voice steady despite the adrenaline. He holstered his gun and pulled her into a firm embrace, right there in the damaged garage. The kiss that followed was urgent but not consuming, grounded in relief and the raw acknowledgement of what they had become. I meant what I said, he murmured against her hair. I protect what matters. And you matter more than you know. In the weeks that followed, Taewoo moved decisively against the Black Scorpions. Their operations crumbled under targeted strikes and pressure from his allies. Key figures vanished or surrendered. The message spread through Seoul's underworld, threatened Kong Taewoo's own, and faced total destruction. The garage ambush had changed something fundamental between them. The constant push and pull softened into mutual respect. Arguments still sparked, but they now ended in quiet conversations rather than distance. Aisha no longer fought every command. Taewoo no longer demanded blind obedience. On the night the last Scorpion leader was confirmed eliminated, they sat together on the penthouse balcony, the city lights twinkling below. Taewoo poured them both a glass of wine and turned to her. I never expected someone like you, he admitted, his usual guarded tone stripped away. You walked in as a maid and became the one thing that makes the darkness bearable. Aisha looked out at the skyline, then back at him. I didn't choose this world. But I choose to stand in it with you now. Not because you forced it, but because I see the man behind the boss, the one who fights for what he claims. He reached for her hand, holding it firmly. Then we face whatever comes next together. No more games of ownership. Just us. Outside, Seoul continued its restless pulse, indifferent to the lives it held. Inside the tower, the Korean Mafia boss and the woman who had once been his new black maid had forged something stronger than conquest, a partnership born from fire, resistance, and hard-won trust. Their story, intense and unyielding, had found its balance at last.